Okay, setting it up the meeting.
I do see the little live on YouTube icon, so that's good.
Yeah, I think it's about there. It's doing its thing. Just waiting for our pictures. Okay, we are live here. We've just aired our show of the Charleston Jazz Orchestra featuring Ernie Watts. And we have the conductor of the Charleston Jazz Orchestra joining us, Mr. Robert Lewis.
I do see the little live on YouTube icon.
And I'll let you introduce.
I think it's about there.
Okay, Robert, take it away.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was hearing some background noise there. Hey, Ernie, good to see you again. It was fun to watch that show. We were just talking about, I don't know what you want to talk about, but hey, Brent, I'm getting echo from your...
The Charleston Jazz Orchestra.
There we go. Thank you. So it seemed like a lot of the introduction of the tunes got cut out. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the different sax players and tunes maybe that we played that night?
Sure. Let me get my program here. I know that we did Wabash, which was Cannonball's tune.
We did do Wabash.
And he was a great guy. You know, he was just a natural, good person. I met him when I was in high school. I went to school in Wilmington, Delaware, and my folks weren't into music, but they were very, very supportive, right? But I had a neighbor that was really into music, and he ended up taking me to concerts and all kinds of different things around the East Coast, New Jersey, and in that area.
Wow.
And we lived near the University of Delaware, and Cannon's band from 1963 with Yusef Lateef and, you know, the great band. And
Was that with Zawinul in there too?
yeah, I was with Zawinul and Yusef and Sam Jones and Lewis Hayes.
Yeah.
And we went to hear them at the university, and we got there early and we went backstage, and I met Cannon then. And I was like, that was 1963. So that was my last year in high school. And I had been playing in local bands and stuff. So I walked up and I said hello, and, you know, we talked a little bit. And then I just asked him if I could try his horn, you know.
Wow.
Is it okay if I try to play your horn? And he said, sure, that'll be fine. But I just put this reed on here and let me do this gig, and then I'll come back and you can try the horn. So he let me play his horn. Then
Wow.
he was such a cool guy. And after that, you know, time went on, and we got together again when I had moved to LA, and I was doing sessions and I was working quite a bit. He had a producer named David Axelrod, and we would all get together and have a bite to eat and hang out and talk about music and stuff. And we got to know each other pretty well. I did 2 or 3 recordings with Cannon. I did the thing, Black Messiah, and I did a thing called the Soul Zodiac, and there was another one that we did, and Roy McCurdy was playing drums then, and it was a great band. And so he was always a very, very, very sweet guy to me. Good guy.
So, I mean, the real important question is, how was his horn?
It was great. It's when all of those guys were playing those King Super 20s with the silver bells.
Oh yeah.
That was their big promotion thing at that time. That was the same horn that Berg played. You know, when they got Berg to do all the verve things, the things with the strings and everything, that was the same horn he was playing. It was a King Super 20 with the octave key reversed.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a good horns. Good horn.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Bird, one of the tunes was a tribute to Charlie Parker. Wasn't that one that you wrote?
Yeah, that was called Byrds Idea. Basically, it's blues for Alice with a chromatic bridge in
Hmm.
in the middle of it, starting on E flat. So yeah, I I started playing the saxophone in school, right? So I had my regular school teacher, and I was practicing and studying, and I started studying privately, and my mother was very supportive. Like I said, she wasn't a music person, but she was very supportive. But I got a lot of support from my next door neighbor on the East Coast, you know, Baltimore, Delaware, New Jersey, all of that area. The houses are in rows, right? Row
Right.
house. So I mean, we were right. I was right next door to this guy learning how to play the saxophone. I mean, the wall to my bedroom was connected to the wall to one of his rooms, you know. So he would hear me practicing, and he started taking me to hear different people. So I got quite a background. His name was Alden Jenkins. They called him Aldi, and we went to all kinds of concerts. And I got it. He started to introduce me to jazz, right? Because I was playing classical saxophone. I was playing what I was being taught at the school.
Right.
And my first jazz record ever was a Dave Brubeck album called "Jazz Goes to College."
Hmm.
And I heard Paul Desmond play, and Paul Desmond's playing was so lyrical, so beautiful. I could play some of his things off the record.
Right.
So, so I was very encouraged about that, you know. And then after that, my neighbors started showing me Charlie Parker, Eric Dolphy. You
Those are harder to play off the record.
know. Oh, okay. There's a whole lot of ways to play the saxophone, right? So
Yeah.
my mom realized I wasn't going to quit, right? So she was always supportive, but they didn't know what to do with me because the only music they knew was what was on the radio, and what was on the radio was Bill Haley and the Comets. You know,
Yeah.
that was the saxophone player I'd get to hear, and King Curtis playing with playing with behind the R&B bands. So she joined the Columbia Record Club. She got me a little record player from Silvertone, from Sears, and that year, the first record she got was the freebie. You know, the first one's free.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so she got the freebie, and the freebie that year was a Miles Davis album called "Kinda Blue." That was my first record of my own, right? So those of you out there that are jazz historians will know what year that was. I'm not going to tell you. You got to figure that out. And, then I heard Coltrane on there. Everybody, Cannonball was on there. You know, Bill Evans and Jimmy Cobb had just joined the band. Paul Chambers was there, and it was, you know, it was this incredible band. And I heard Coltrane play, and it was just mesmerizing to me, you know, because I didn't know anything about harmony. I didn't know anything about what was going on with improvisation, but it sounded to me like when Coltrane played, he played in a different key from the other.
You weren't wrong.
He was playing in a different key from the other guys in the band, but it still worked, right? It was beautiful. So from that point on, I'm about 13, 14 years old. From that point on, I always wanted to play in the other key. And so, that's how I set out on my journey.
That's kind of funny because when I was a junior in high school, I lived in Norway for a year, and I bought the Kind of Blue album from a jazz record store, which was, I'd never seen a jazz record store in the United States before. And I spent pretty much every night listening to that on headphones right before I went to sleep. So we had kind of the same experience in a way.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I had this little record player that was from Sears, this silver tone, and the body of the record player was here. And then you took the speaker off the front and you put the speaker over there. So it was stereo, right?
Oh, nice.
You know, and it had a little stacker. And so what I would do every night is I would take 3 or 4 Coltrane records and put them on the stacker and turn it and listen to it as I went to sleep too, you know.
Just get it through osmosis.
Yeah, well, I tell people that I program my subconscious mind to hear intervallically in a particular way. So even before I knew what fourths were or minor sevenths or anything about music harmony, I was already playing that stuff because I didn't know what it was, but I loved it and I was playing it, you know.
Yeah.
And then I finally got to Berkeley and I found out, oh, it's a Dorian scale. It's a Mixolydian scale, you know, and then the pieces came together. But
Nice.
before then, it was totally intuitive.
Huh. Amazing.
Ernie, we had a question. One of our viewers was asking how important was it when you developed your jazz language to then use that to approach other styles, whether it's playing rock or sitting in as a studio player or, you know, like a session musician having to quickly read music on the fly. How much did the jazz playing help you out learning other styles and developing that approach?
I was totally, thoroughly overtrained. By the time I got to the studios, I was totally overtrained. So playing R&B, playing pop music, playing blues music, playing all of the other types of music that I had to play were very, very simple for me because the music I listened to was some of the most evolved music that had ever been played up to that point. When you start talking about Coltrane and Thelonious Monk and Miles and Eric Dolphy and all of these people, that's all I listened to. I didn't know anything else to listen to until I was about 21. So to do all of the other styles was very easy because all of it is still Western music. All of it still has the same rules of harmony, right? A D minor 7 chord is a D minor 7 in jazz. It's a D minor 7 chord for Bach, for Beethoven, everybody. So I learned the rules of the music and then I just applied them to the other forms. Now, basically, I'm going to really simplify it. Basically, all of the harmony, the notes and the scales are pretty much the same. The only thing that denotes the styles is where you put the notes in the bar. It's the grooves, it's the rhythm. You know, when I do a clinic, I do that. You know, I'll play something for the kids and we'll do it as swing, and then we'll do it as hip hop, and then we'll do it as blues. And it's still the same scale. So really, it's not the notes as much as where you put them.
And how many you play, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's great. That's great. What about, you know, I became aware of you, I think I was 13 or 14 years old in 83, 84, and you were doing a lot of stuff with the Grusin brothers and
That's right.
the GRP level, the GRP All-Stars Big Band,
That's right.
as well as the Jazz Fusion record with Gamelan that you did.
Right.
How do you change your approach when you are working with singers such as Diane Shore or Kurt Elling when you're backing them on a date?
Well, it's just a matter of really listening, and you listen to what they're doing, and then you apply what you're doing to that. You know, I tell people when you go and you play behind the stylistics or the Commodores, you don't play a Coltrane solo. You know, it's the same thing when you play with different singers that have different ways of playing. Now, when you talk about Kurt and you talk about Diane, they're very they're very on it. You can pretty much play whatever you feel in there with them because they are very knowledgeable of the music. They're very good musicians, you know. So they're very natural to play with. But other people that sing, other instrumentalists, you have to be sensitive to where they're coming from. So you listen first. You listen a lot.
Sure.
We had Diane here with the big band, and I was trading with her on a couple tunes, and she kept singing my lines right back to me. So you couldn't stump her.
She knows.
Yeah, for sure.
So throughout your travels, Ernie, around the world, obviously you've gotten in situations where perhaps not everybody speaks the same, you know, vocal language, but you speak the language of music. How important is that universal language of music today?
Well, it's like everywhere you go, you're with your family. When you play music everywhere in the world, you're with your family, because most musicians that are serious musicians, everybody gets the same information. You know, you go and you play with jazz musicians, they've grown up listening to Miles, they've grown up listening to Coltrane and Joe Henderson and a lot of other players. So they're familiar with that music. So you might not be able to speak well verbally, but you can always communicate musically. And then a lot of musicians speak some English. So then the main thing is just that some of the terminology might be different for some of the harmonic systems that we have and that kind of thing, but you just learn that.
Nice.
It's pretty easy. It's easy. It really flows if you play music.
Right. And I guess having a grasp of a lot of the familiar songs that you know that people know around the world, that everyone's kind of had the same, you know, batch of 100 or 150 songs, and everybody can kind of, you know, groove on the
exactly.
Go with it.
That's sort of the basis of your vocabulary.
Yeah.
And you get into original material and original terminologies, and then it opens up, and that's good too.
Somebody wrote in and asked about your time with Cannonball. If you had any stories to tell about your experiences with Cannonball Adderley.
Well,
we talked
about that at first. I would just top that off and say he was a very warm person. He was a very good person, friendly. We did a couple of albums in LA together. We played at the Troubadour. I'll tell you a funny Cannonball story. His nickname, Cannonball, comes from cannibal.
Yeah, I heard that.
Because he could eat. This guy could eat. So we did the Troubadour, and he had moved his family to LA. And so he invited the band, he invited everybody over to his house for dinner. And they made this giant pot of gumbo, right? Everybody got a bowl of gumbo. And Cannon sat down at the pot, at the pot of gumbo. And he almost ate the whole pot of gumbo himself. So his name came honestly. Yeah.
Did you travel around the world with him, or mostly stateside?
It was things mainly in the LA area, recording things and that kind of stuff. It was like, I moved to LA in 1968. And at the same time I moved to LA, Motown moved to LA from Detroit. And I started doing record dates. The Tonight Show would come to LA for 2 weeks at a time, a couple of times a year. I started doing the Tonight Show. When they moved to LA permanently in 1971, I'd started doing the Tonight Show. So by the time I met Cannon and Frank Zappa and all the guys, they wanted me to travel, but I couldn't afford to go. I should have, you know what I mean? As far as the music goes, as far as the music background, the history of what was going on goes, I should have done it, but I didn't. I stayed in town.
That's a hard choice, though.
It was very, very difficult. It was very, very difficult. But I'll tell you one thing that's just a cold, hard logic thing. I was in the studios for like 30 years almost, and I get a pension. I get, you know, so I tell people that, yeah, now I can afford to play jazz.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't understand that we're people too. You know, and we have homes, we raise families, we're out there mowing our lawn. We are humans too. And sometimes, you know, people don't understand. They think, well, the life of a musician, it's just a great big party. You know, all you guys do is hang out and play. You don't work, you play. You even say you play music. You don't work music. You play, right?
If only that were true.
Right. So a lot of times people don't understand, you know, like I'm going to be 75 in October 23rd, I'm going to be 75, you know.
Yeah.
There ain't too much partying for me. The party days have come and gone, you know. I'm still studying, I'm still practicing, but now for me, my major you know, project or priority is to get enough sleep. You know, my major priority is to stay healthy and get enough sleep. You know, and I think that's something that a whole lot of people, you know, don't think about. You know, when you're a musician, yeah, that guy's a musician. All he does is hang out.
No.
Who are some of the other saxophone legends that you were able to see live and in person, you know, throughout the 60s and 70s?
Boy, everybody. You know, I used to go and see Coltrane when I was at Berkeley. He used to play at the Jazz Workshop. So I go down there every night and see see Coltrane. I met James Moody when I was at Berkeley too, and I did some recording with him, and we were friends until he passed away. He was a great, great musician. A lot of great musicians came to LA to work in the studios. Benny Golson wrote jingles. He came to LA to write jingles. I did a whole bunch of jingle dates with Benny, you know. AJ Johnson, he came to LA and I did films and stuff with him. Oliver Nelson was there. You know, we did films. He did the $6 Million Man. He did all of those things, and then he had his band. So a lot of the guys came through. Guys came through from Duke's band, and Britt Woodman, and you know, they would retire off the bands. They were trying to get off the road so they could stay home and be with their family. You know, Marshall Royal, the great lead alto player with Count Basie, he was in LA for quite a while. Sweets Edison, it was in LA for quite a while. Great trumpet player. He did all the harmony stuff with Frank Sinatra, and he was a great player and a hilarious guy. Hilarious.
Wasn't Hank Jones in the studios there too for a while?
I don't think so. He might have been in New York. Victor Feldman was in the studio for years.
Okay.
Yeah, when I first came to LA, I got a gig on a movie thing with oh boy, let me get it now. Mancini. I'm sorry. Hank. And Henry Mancini was writing this big military band thing. It must have been for the Patton movie or something like that, right? So there I am playing third clarinet, you know, in this 80-piece marching band thing. And I turn around and I look, and there's Larry Bunker, and there's, you know, all of these great players. And I'm looking in the back, and it's Victor Feldman. And Victor Feldman's in the back of the studio playing the field drum, the giant field drum. And he's got this great big mallet, and he's going, boom, boom. And I'm looking at him, and I'm going, that's Victor Feldman. 7 Steps to Heaven. He played with Miles Davis. You know, he wrote Joshua. And he's going, boom. That was quite a day. That was quite a day.
That's great. What would be a typical day in the life of a studio musician? How many days or sessions would you do in a day, in a week?
For me, I was very, very blessed. I mean, my life is a miracle. My life is a parade of miracles. I left Buddy Rich's band in 1968. I came to LA, and I started working in the studios immediately. I didn't even know what studios were. I thought I wanted to get with Cannon's band, or I really wanted to play with Miles or something like that. And so I was looking for something like that. And people started asking me if I wanted to do a record date. So I started doing that, and it just evolved, you know. So for me, it came to be, I would get up in the morning, I would do a record date from 10 until 2. I would go to the Tonight Show, and I would do the Tonight Show from 3:15 to 6:30. I would get off of the Tonight Show. I would do another date, or I'd go and have dinner and do a club thing at Dante's or something like that. So most days I did 2 or 3 dates.
Wow.
You know, for years.
Wow.
If I had a big film date and I couldn't, and I wasn't able to do that, I had a sub that I could send to the Tonight Show. Tom Peterson, who's a beautiful saxophone player, he was my sub on the Tonight Show. And as long as I could get Tom, it would be okay for me to sub that out. So I sort of kept a balance, but it was hard. It was hard work, you know. It was every day, all day. But that all of that stuff was going on. You know, I came to LA and I started as a sub, right? I started subbing for Bill Green. He was a great doubler. Buddy Collette, Bud Shank, all of these people. They were so busy they couldn't do all their work. So I would go in and I would sub for them. And from subbing for them, I would start getting my own calls. And that's how that evolved. It was just one of those times, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I know that everyone in the Charleston Jazz Orchestra had an incredible time learning the charts that you sent us. And Robert, was there anything uniquely challenging for the band in putting it together?
Well, a lot of it was pretty hard. You know, two of the tunes that you wrote, the one from Michael Brecker and the To the Point, those were pretty interesting charts. They got some strange phrase lengths and, you know, rhythms and stuff. And the harmony's a little more modern than some of the stuff we do.
Right.
Do you want to, did you know Michael Brecker and Bob Berg and some?
I didn't know Bob, but I knew Mike pretty well. I grew up in Wilmington, and he and his brother are from Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was right after I graduated from high school, I worked in Atlantic City for the summer at a place called the Club Harlem. It was on Kentucky Avenue in Atlantic City. And there were like clubs. It was just a street of clubs. It was like 52nd Street. The Club Harlem was sort of like the Cotton Club. And I played lead alto in the house band. So we play behind Sammy Davis Jr. and Demita Joe, and Lou Rawls had just started. He just had his first hit, and they had organ bands. They had organ bands that played in the lounge. I mean, they had music for 24 hours. On Saturday, you would do a Saturday show, and Sunday morning there would be a breakfast show at 6 a.m. Yeah.
Wow.
My gig was like 3 months, 7 days a week, no days off. So that's when I met Randy, because he was in one of those bands. I met Harvey Mason. He lived in Atlantic City. He's from Atlantic City. I met Randy. I met Steve Gadd. He was playing with Jimmy Tyler's band. And I met Michael shortly after that. I met Michael when I was doing some things with Billy Cobham, and we were doing one of Billy's overdub sessions. And then we played in the GRP thing together. We played at a concert in Japan at the Live Under the Sky Festival. That was an album of, it was Don Grolnick's music. And Don had written it for a saxophone section. It was that Hearts and Numbers. Hearts and Numbers is a beautiful CD that Michael did with Don Grolnick. Don voiced it out for 4 saxophones. So it was Michael and myself and Bill Evans and Stanley Turrentine. And there was one.
I've seen that's on YouTube.
Yeah, it is a YouTube thing, and there was only one performance. We came, we played, and we went.
Huh.
You're playing alto on that, I believe.
Yeah, I played alto and tenor on that.
Yeah.
Cool.
I really like that.
Super cool.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Robert, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, I could talk to Ernie as long as he wants to go. So, you know.
Well, we'll definitely have to have a part 2 of this, I think.
Yeah.
Good. That would be good.
We want to thank the legendary, in his own right, Ernie Watts, saxophone titan, for joining us tonight and coming to Charleston last October and working with the group and putting on 2 fabulous concerts. And Ernie, we can't wait to have you back.
Well, let's work on doing it. Let's work on doing it again.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we can find some more music.
Right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. And this video will be available on our YouTube channel as soon as we get it edited after we wrap it up. So good night, everybody. Robert and I are coming from Charleston, and Ernie is coming to you from just outside Los Angeles. Have a great evening, everybody. Goodbye.